She was drowning in debt. Her mother was fighting for her life, and time was running out. Then a powerful billionaire offered her a deal: marry him for 1 year, no love, no questions, and she would never worry about money again. It was supposed to be simple, just a contract, just survival. But in a mansion full of secrets, cold silences, and hidden sacrifices, Lily didn't just become a wife, she became the center of a dangerous love triangle. She married a stranger for money, but when her heart chose the wrong man, everything began to fall apart. Now she must decide: follow comfort or fight for a love she never expected. Because sometimes the greatest mistake leads to the truest love. But who will she choose? Welcome to Tales by Jay. Here we bring you gripping stories full of drama, love, and unexpected twists. Don't miss a single tale. Hit subscribe and join the adventure. The night before Lily made the biggest mistake of her life, she stood in the dark kitchen of her small apartment and counted coins. Not notes, coins. She poured them onto the table, silver and copper pieces rolling in different directions, and counted slowly. 32, 33, 34. $34. That was everything she had left in the world. The fridge hummed behind her, almost empty. The rent notice was still taped to the door like a cruel reminder. She hadn't taken it down because she needed to see it, needed to remember how close she was to losing everything. Her phone buzzed. She froze. Another message from the landlord. This is your final reminder. Payment by Friday or eviction begins. Lily felt heat rise behind her eyes, but she refused to cry. She had cried too much lately. Tears didn't fix things. Money did. And she didn't have it. She walked to her bedroom and opened her wardrobe. Inside were clothes she rarely wore. She had already sold the expensive ones online. What remained were simple dresses, worn jeans, and a coat she had owned since college. Her gaze fell on a small jewelry box. Inside was a silver necklace, her father's last gift to her before he passed away. She held it tightly. For a moment, she considered selling it, but she couldn't. Some things were worth more than money. The next morning, Lily visited her mother again. Grace Carter was weaker than before. Her breathing was shallow, her hands thinner, but her smile remained soft and brave. "Did you eat?" Grace asked immediately. Lily forced a cheerful tone. "Of course." It was a lie. She hadn't eaten since the day before. Grace looked at her carefully. "You're carrying something heavy." Lily hesitated. Then she leaned closer and rested her forehead against her mother's hand. "I just need a miracle," she whispered. Grace smiled faintly. "Miracles don't always look like we expect." Lily didn't understand those words then. She would soon. That afternoon, she sat alone in her apartment when the envelope arrived. It didn't come through the mailbox. It was slipped directly under her door. That alone made her uneasy. The paper was thick, expensive, her name written neatly in dark ink. Lily Carter. No sender, no explanation. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was the offer. $250,000 for a private agreement. Meeting at 10 a.m., discard if declined. Her heart pounded loudly in her ears. This wasn't normal. This wasn't safe. This wasn't the kind of thing that happened to girls like her. But neither was losing your home. Neither was watching your mother slowly fade because you couldn't afford medicine. She read the address again. It was real, a well-known business district. She searched the company name written at the bottom, Kingston & Co. It was one of the biggest corporate firms in the city. This wasn't a scam. It was something else, something bigger. Lily didn't sleep that night. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, her mind arguing with itself. "Don't go. This is dangerous. Go. You have nothing left to lose." At 9:15 a.m., she stood outside the building. It was taller than any place she had ever entered. Glass walls reflected the sky. People in expensive suits walked in and out like they owned the world. Lily felt invisible and exposed at the same time. She almost turned around, but then she thought of her mother's tired face. She walked in. The elevator ride felt too quiet, too smooth. Her reflection in the mirror looked small. When the doors opened, a receptionist greeted her politely. "Miss Carter, Mr. Kingston is expecting you." Her stomach flipped. She followed the assistant down a wide hallway lined with framed awards and photographs of powerful people shaking hands. She felt like she didn't belong in any of the pictures. The office door opened, and there he was, Adrian Kingston. He stood near the window, city skyline behind him. The light made him look sharp, almost carved from stone. When he turned, his gaze locked onto hers immediately. It wasn't unkind, but it wasn't warm either. It was calculating. "Miss Carter," he said calmly. His voice was deep, controlled. Lily forced herself not to shrink. "Mr. Kingston?" He gestured for her to sit. She noticed how clean everything was. The desk, the air, even the silence. Adrian remained standing. "I'll be direct," he said. Her heart beat faster. "I need to get married." The words hung between them. Lily blinked slowly. "You need to... what?" "Married," he repeated, "within 2 weeks." She stared at him, searching for humor in his face. There was none. "This is some kind of joke," she said carefully. "It's not." He opened a folder and slid it toward her. Legal papers, conditions, confidentiality clauses. "Why me?" she asked, her voice barely steady. "You were recommended by someone who knows your situation," Adrian replied. Her body stiffened. "Who?" "That information is private." Lily's hands tightened in her lap. "You investigated me?" "I confirmed that you are financially desperate," he said evenly, "and that you have no criminal record." Her cheeks burned with humiliation. "You think I'll marry you because I'm poor?" "I think you'll consider it," Adrian corrected, "because you need help." His blunt honesty hit harder than cruelty. Lily stood suddenly. "This is insane!" "Sit down," Adrian said calmly. Not loud, not angry, just firm. Something about his tone made her pause. He continued, "My grandfather is dying. He built this company. He wants to see me settled before he passes." "So you decided to rent a wife?" "Yes." The room went very quiet. Lily looked at him carefully now. He didn't look excited. He didn't look amused. He looked tired. "What's in it for you?" she asked. "Stability, control, and my grandfather's peace." "And what about me?" she whispered. $250,000, Adrian said, half immediately, half after 12 months. Her breath caught. "That money would cover your mother's hospital bills," he added quietly. Her heart stopped. "How do you know about my mother?" she asked sharply. Adrian held her gaze. "I make it a habit to understand the people I work with." The weight of her situation pressed down on her chest. "You would move into my home, attend events, smile in public. No romantic expectations, no emotional demands." "And if I fall in love with you?" Lily asked before she could stop herself. His expression did not change. "You won't." The confidence in his answer stung. "And if you fall in love with me?" she shot back. A flicker, just a small one, passed through his eyes. "That won't happen either." Lily looked down at the contract. The numbers stared at her like salvation. Her mind screamed no, but her heart thought of her mother lying in a hospital bed. Her fingers picked up the pen. 2 weeks?" she asked. "Yes. And after a year? We divorce quietly. You keep the money." Her hand trembled as she signed her name. Lily Carter. The sound of the pen on paper felt louder than it should. Adrian watched her carefully. When she finished, he nodded once. "It's done." Lily felt something shift inside her, like a door closing behind her. As she stood to leave, the office door opened. A man walked in carrying files. He looked different from Adrian. lighter somehow, softer. When his eyes met Lily's, he paused. He smiled gently. "Hi, I'm Ethan Hale. I handle Mr. Kingston's legal affairs." His voice was warm. It felt human. Lily didn't know why, but after everything that had just happened, that small warmth felt dangerous. "Nice to meet you," she said softly. Ethan's gaze lingered for a moment too long, as if he sensed something fragile in her. Adrian cleared his throat. The air shifted again. Lily stepped out of the office, contract signed, future sealed. She thought she had just sold her name. She didn't realize she had just stepped into a family secret, a rivalry, and a love that would break 3 hearts. And the worst part? It had only just begun. The wedding happened faster than Lily could breathe. 2 weeks passed in a blur of fittings, rehearsals, paperwork, and silence. Adrian handled everything. The dress arrived without her choosing it. The guest list was approved without her opinion. Even the ring was selected by someone else. Lily felt less like a bride and more like a signed agreement in a white gown. On the morning of the wedding, she stood in a large bedroom inside Adrian's mansion, staring at herself in the mirror. The dress was beautiful, long white silk, delicate lace, fitted perfectly to her body. Her hair was styled softly around her shoulders. Makeup covered the exhaustion in her eyes. Anyone looking at her would think she was lucky, but Lily didn't feel lucky. She felt owned. A soft knock came at the door. 5 minutes, a stylist said gently before leaving. Lily exhaled slowly. 5 minutes until she became Mrs. Kingston. She thought of her mother. The first half of the money had already been transferred. The hospital bills were paid. Treatment continued. For the first time in months, Lily had seen relief in her mother's eyes. That alone made everything worth it. Even this. The ceremony was held in a private garden behind the Kingston estate. White roses lined the aisle. Cameras were positioned discreetly at the corners. Wealthy guests whispered politely among themselves. When Lily stepped outside, all eyes turned to her. She forced herself not to look at the crowd. Instead, she focused on the man waiting at the end of the aisle. Adrian Kingston stood tall and composed in a black suit. His expression was calm, unreadable. He didn't smile when he saw her. He simply watched her walk toward him. Each step felt heavier than the last. When she reached him, his eyes flickered briefly, almost like he noticed the nervous tremor in her hands. The officiant began speaking about love, trust, and lifelong commitment. The words felt like lies floating in the air. When it was time to exchange vows, Adrian spoke first. "I promise to protect and honor this marriage." His tone was steady, controlled. When it was Lily's turn, her throat tightened. "I promise to stand beside you," she said softly. "Beside you, not with you." The rings were exchanged. When Adrian slid the ring onto her finger, his touch was cool, careful. He leaned closer, just enough so no one else could hear him. "Relax," he whispered. "You're shaking." "I'm not used to marrying strangers," she replied under her breath. For the first time, the corner of his mouth twitched slightly. Then the officiant smiled. "You may kiss the bride." A quiet pause followed. Adrian placed one hand gently at her waist. The kiss was brief, polite, empty. The crowd clapped. And just like that, Lily Carter disappeared. Mrs. Lily Kingston was born. That night, after the guests left and the lights dimmed, Lily stood in the entrance hall of the mansion. It was larger than she imagined. Marble floors, high ceilings, crystal chandeliers. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a museum where emotions weren't allowed. Adrian walked beside her, hands in his pockets. "You'll have your own room," he said calmly, "at the end of the east wing." Lily stopped walking. "Of course I will." Adrian looked at her. "What did you expect?" he asked. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe for it to feel less cold. He didn't answer that. Instead, he led her down a long hallway and opened a large bedroom door. The room was beautiful. Soft gray walls, large windows, elegant furniture. It was bigger than her entire apartment. "This is yours," Adrian said. Lily stepped inside slowly. "Is there anything else I should know?" she asked quietly. "Yes," Adrian replied. "My family will test you." She turned to face him. "They already think you married me for money," he continued. "They won't hide their opinions." Lily let out a soft laugh. "They wouldn't be wrong." Adrian's eyes darkened slightly. "Don't underestimate what this arrangement means," he said. "If you embarrass me—" "I won't," she cut in quickly. "I signed the contract. I'll play my role." Silence filled the room. For a moment, Adrian seemed like he wanted to say something else. Instead, he stepped back toward the door. "Good night, Lily." And he left. Lily sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the ring on her finger. She had security now. She had money, but she felt lonelier than ever. The next morning, Lily woke to the sound of quiet footsteps outside her room. A housekeeper had left breakfast on a tray near her door. Everything in the mansion operated silently, perfectly. She walked downstairs later and found Adrian already dressed in a suit, reading something on his tablet. "You're up," he said without looking at her. "I live here now. I suppose I should be." He glanced at her briefly. "There's a family dinner tomorrow evening," he said. "Be prepared." Prepared for what? Questions. His tone held a warning. Before leaving for work, Adrian paused at the door. "There's a meeting this afternoon," he added, "with my legal advisor. You'll need to sign additional documents." "Mr. Hale?" she asked before thinking. Adrian's gaze sharpened slightly. "Yes, Ethan." The way he said Ethan's name carried something complicated. That afternoon, Lily arrived at the Kingston office again. This time, she walked in as Mrs. Kingston. People greeted her politely, respectfully. It felt strange. When she entered the conference room, Ethan stood by the window reviewing papers. He turned when he heard her. For a brief second, his expression softened in surprise. "You look different," he said gently. "Married," Lily replied. Ethan smiled faintly. "That too." There was something warm in his eyes that Lily hadn't seen in Adrian's. "How are you?" Ethan asked quietly. It was such a simple question, but it felt real. "I'm surviving," she answered honestly. Ethan nodded like he understood more than she said. They sat down, and he explained the documents carefully, making sure she understood each clause. Unlike Adrian, Ethan didn't rush her. He didn't treat her like a transaction. At one point, she laughed softly at a comment he made about how complicated legal language could be. Ethan looked at her, almost relieved. "That's the first real laugh I've heard from you," he said. Lily blinked. "You've been paying attention?" Ethan admitted quietly. The air shifted slightly. Before either of them could say more, the door opened. Adrian stepped inside. His eyes moved from Ethan to Lily. He noticed the small smile on her face, and something in his expression tightened. "We're done here?" Adrian asked calmly. "Yes," Ethan replied, standing. Lily gathered her papers, suddenly aware of how close she and Ethan had been sitting. As she walked past Adrian, she felt his gaze on her, measuring, thinking. On the drive home, Adrian finally spoke. "You seem comfortable with Ethan." Lily hesitated. "He's kind." His jaw tightened slightly. "He's good at appearing that way." The comment lingered in the air. "What does that mean?" Lily asked. "Nothing," Adrian replied. But it didn't feel like nothing. When they arrived home, Lily went to her room feeling unsettled. She had entered this marriage expecting emptiness. She hadn't expected tension, or curiosity, or the quiet pull she felt when Ethan looked at her like she mattered. That night, as she lay in her large, beautiful, lonely bed, Lily realized something dangerous. She might survive this marriage, but surviving and feeling alive were not the same thing. And somewhere between a cold husband and a warm stranger, her heart had begun to choose. The next morning, Lily woke with a strange feeling in her chest. It wasn't fear, it wasn't regret, it was awareness. Awareness that something inside her had shifted. She dressed carefully for the family dinner Adrian had warned her about. A simple navy dress, elegant but not loud. She studied herself in the mirror before leaving her room. Be calm, be polite, don't react. When she stepped into the dining hall that evening, the Kingston family was already gathered around the long, polished table. Adrian stood near the head of the table, speaking quietly with a tall woman dressed in dark red. "That's my aunt, Veronica," he murmured to Lily as she approached. "She enjoys testing people." "I'll try not to fail," Lily replied softly. Adrian looked at her for a brief second, almost as if he admired her courage, but he said nothing more. Veronica turned when she heard their footsteps. "So, this is the bride," she said, her voice smooth but sharp. "Welcome to the family, Lily." "Thank you," Lily replied politely. Veronica's eyes scanned her slowly like she was inspecting something in a store. "I heard it was a whirlwind romance. How exciting." Lily met her gaze calmly. Life moves quickly sometimes, especially when money is involved. The table fell quiet. Adrian's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. Lily felt heat rise in her chest, but she refused to let her voice shake. "I married your nephew," she said gently, "not your bank account." A few distant cousins shifted uncomfortably. Veronica raised her glass. "We shall see." Dinner continued, but every question felt like an examination. Where did you grow up? What does your mother do? How did you meet Adrian? Lily answered carefully, never revealing more than she needed to. She noticed something else, too. Adrian never corrected anyone, but he never joined the attack either. He simply watched, observing, learning. After dinner, guests slowly left the room. Lily stepped outside onto the balcony for fresh air. The night sky was quiet. Cool wind brushed her face. "You handled that well." She turned. Ethan stood near the doorway, hands in his pockets. "I didn't know you were invited." "I'm family counsel. That makes me permanent furniture." She smiled faintly. Ethan stepped closer but kept a respectful distance. "They were unfair." "I expected it," Lily said. "You shouldn't have to." Something in his tone made her look at him more closely. "Why do you care so much?" she asked quietly. Ethan hesitated. "Because I know what it feels like to be judged by people who think they're better than you." Lily studied him. "You don't seem like someone who struggles." He gave a small, humorless laugh. "Appearances are useful in this family." The way he said "this family" caught her attention. Before she could ask more, Adrian stepped onto the balcony. His eyes moved between them. "Ethan," he said evenly, "I didn't realize you were still here." "I was just leaving." There was something tense beneath the surface calm. Lily felt it. Ethan gave her one last look, gentle, reassuring, before walking away. Adrian remained silent for a moment. "You don't have to defend yourself to them," he finally said. "I wasn't defending myself. I was surviving." Adrian looked at her, and for a second his expression softened. "You're stronger than they think," he said quietly. Then he walked back inside. Lily stood there alone, confused by the brief warmth in his voice. Days passed. Adrian became busier, leaving early and returning late. Meetings, calls, business trips. The mansion felt empty most of the time. Lily found herself visiting the office more often for minor paperwork or charity planning, and each time she ran into Ethan. At first, their conversations were short and careful, but slowly they grew longer. One afternoon, they sat in his office reviewing documents for an upcoming foundation event. "You don't look happy," Ethan said suddenly. Lily sighed. Is it that obvious? Only to someone paying attention. She leaned back in her chair. I thought money would fix everything, she admitted, but I feel like I traded one problem for another. Ethan's gaze softened. You didn't trade your heart, he said gently. That's still yours. She looked at him. Is it? She asked. There was a silence between them that felt heavy and fragile. Ethan stood slowly and walked toward the window. You deserve someone who sees you, he said quietly, not someone who hides behind walls. Lily knew he was talking about Adrian, but she didn't stop him. Adrian isn't cruel, she said softly. No, he agreed. He's not. He's just guarded. Why? She asked. Ethan's shoulders stiffened slightly. Because he's learned that people stay when they need something, not when they love him. Lily felt a sharp twist in her chest. That's not true, she said automatically. Ethan turned to face her. Isn't it? The question lingered, because Lily had married Adrian for money, even if it was for survival. The truth still hurt. A few days later, heavy rain fell across the city. Lily had stayed late at the office helping with paperwork for a charity event. When she stepped outside, she realized she had forgotten her umbrella. Ethan appeared beside her. I'll drive you, he said. You don't have to. I know. They sat in his car as rain tapped against the windshield. The world outside blurred. For the first time since her wedding, Lily felt calm. No expectations, no performance, just quiet. You can talk to me, Ethan said softly. She didn't mean to open up, but she did. She told him about her father's death, about watching her mother grow weaker, about counting coins in the dark kitchen. Ethan listened without interrupting. When she finished, he reached across the space between them and gently took her hand. You're not alone anymore, he said. Her heart raced. This was wrong. She knew it, but it felt real, more real than anything in her marriage. Ethan, she whispered. He looked at her like he was fighting himself. Tell me to stop, he said quietly. She should have. Instead, she didn't move her hand away. His fingers tightened slightly. The air grew heavy. And in that small, quiet space filled with rain and unspoken truth, Lily realized something terrifying. She wasn't just lonely, she was falling. And she wasn't falling for her husband. She was falling for the man who made her feel understood. The wrong man. The rain did not stop. It ran down the windshield in slow streams, blurring the city lights into soft gold and white streaks. Inside the car, everything felt still. Ethan's hand was still wrapped around Lily's. Neither of them moved. Tell me to stop, he repeated quietly. Lily's heart pounded so hard she could hear it. She should pull away. She should open the door. She should remember the ring on her finger. Instead, she whispered, I don't want to. The words felt dangerous the moment they left her mouth. Ethan closed his eyes briefly, like he was losing a battle inside himself. When he looked at her again, there was no hesitation left. He leaned forward slowly. The kiss was soft at first, uncertain, testing. Then it deepened. It wasn't like the wedding kiss. There was no performance, no cameras, no pretending. This was warm, real, hungry. When they finally pulled apart, Lily's breathing was uneven. We can't do this, she said, even though she was still close enough to feel his heartbeat. I know, Ethan replied, but I haven't felt this alive in years. His honesty shook her. She had entered a contract to save her life. She hadn't planned to feel anything. Yet here she was, breaking promises she had signed in ink. Ethan rested his forehead gently against hers. Adrian will never give you what you need, he murmured. You don't know that, Lily said weakly. I do, Ethan replied. He doesn't know how. The statement stayed with her long after she returned to the mansion that night. Adrian was waiting in the study when she entered. He stood by the fireplace, jacket removed, sleeves rolled up slightly. The room was dim except for the soft orange glow from the flames. "You're late," he said without looking at her. "I stayed at the office," Lily answered. "With Ethan?" Her chest tightened. "Yes." Adrian nodded slowly, still not meeting his eyes. "He's very attentive," he said calmly. "What is that supposed to mean?" Adrian turned to face her now. "It means he listens. He notices things." "And you don't?" she asked. Silence filled the space between them. Adrian walked toward his desk and poured himself a glass of water. "I notice more than you think," he said quietly. Lily watched him carefully. "You don't show it," she said. His expression hardened slightly. "Showing things makes you vulnerable, and vulnerability is expensive." She stepped closer. "I didn't marry you to fight," she said softly. "No, you married me to survive." The truth cut deeper than she expected. "Yes," she admitted. For a brief second, something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe, but it disappeared quickly. "Then survive," he said. "Just don't complicate it." Her stomach twisted. "Complicate what?" she asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he walked past her and left the room. Lily stood alone, feeling exposed. 2 days later, she received a call from the hospital. Her mother's condition had worsened. Lily rushed there immediately. Grace looked smaller in the hospital bed, her skin pale against the white sheets. Lily held her hand tightly. "I'm here," she whispered. Grace opened her eyes slowly. "You look tired," she murmured. Lily tried to smile. "I'm fine." Grace studied her face. "Your heart isn't calm," she said softly. Lily froze. "Adrian, don't build your life on something that will break you," Grace whispered. "Money can fix many things, but not loneliness." Tears filled Lily's eyes. She thought about Adrian's cold control. She thought about Ethan's warm hands in the rain. And for the first time, guilt began to grow heavier than confusion. That evening, Ethan asked her to meet him outside the city. "It's quiet there," he said. "We can talk." Lily knew she shouldn't go, but she did. They met near a quiet lake where the city lights barely reached. The air was calm, and the water reflected the moon. "You've been distant," Ethan said gently. "I feel like I'm standing on thin ice," she admitted. He stepped closer. "You deserve happiness, not an arrangement." "Adrian isn't cruel," she said again, almost defending him. "I didn't say he was," Ethan replied, "but he doesn't love you." The word hung in the air. Love. Was that what this was becoming? Ethan reached for her hands. "I do," he said quietly. Her breath caught. "You don't even know me fully," she whispered. "I know enough. I know how you laugh when you forget to be careful. I know you carry guilt for things that aren't your fault. I know you feel alone in a house full of rooms." Tears slipped down her cheeks before she could stop them. "You make it sound easy," she said. "It isn't," he answered, "but I'd choose you anyway." Lily's heart felt like it was being pulled in 2 directions. "I can't leave yet," she said softly. Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. "Why?" "Because this marriage isn't just business anymore." The words surprised even her. Ethan searched her face. "Do you love him?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer, because she didn't know. She only knew that Adrian's silence affected her more than it should, that his small moments of protection lingered in her mind, that something about him felt unfinished. "I need time," she whispered. Ethan nodded slowly, though disappointment flashed in his eyes. "I won't pressure you," he said, "but I won't pretend I don't feel this." He kissed her again, gentler this time, almost like a promise. And Lily knew the line had officially been crossed. There was no going back to innocent conversation, no pretending this was harmless. She was living in 2 worlds now, one built on contract, one built on emotion, and neither could stay hidden forever. As she drove back towards the mansion, her chest heavy with confusion, she didn't realize that someone had seen her car parked near the lake. from a distance, watching, waiting. And the fragile balance she had been trying to maintain was about to shatter. The mansion was quiet when Lily returned that night. Too quiet. She stepped inside carefully, her heels echoing against the marble floor. The lights in the hallway were dim, but the study door at the end was slightly open. A thin line of light spilled onto the floor. Her heart began to beat faster. Adrian was inside. She could feel it. Lily walked toward the door slowly and pushed it open. Adrian stood by his desk, his back to her. His posture was rigid, shoulders tense. "You're home," he said without turning around. "Yes," she replied carefully. He turned then, and Lily felt her stomach drop. His expression was not angry. It was worse. It was disappointed. "You were at the lake," he said. It wasn't a question. Her throat went dry. "How do you know that?" Adrian held up his phone briefly. A photograph glowed on the screen. Her car, parked near the water. "I had security follow you," he said calmly. The words hit her like ice. "You followed me?" she whispered. "I needed to know." "To know what?" His jaw tightened. "To know if my wife was falling in love with my lawyer." The silence that followed felt suffocating. Lily's chest rose and fell rapidly. "Adrian," she began, but she didn't know how to finish the sentence. He walked slowly toward her. "Was I wrong?" he asked quietly. She could lie. She could deny it, but something inside her was too tired for more pretending. "No," she said. The truth hung in the air like smoke. Adrian closed his eyes for a brief second. When he opened them again, something had changed. "Does he love you?" he asked. Lily swallowed. "Yes." "And you?" Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Because the answer wasn't simple. Because part of her did. Because part of her was confused. Because part of her was scared. "I don't know," she whispered. Adrian laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "You don't know," he repeated. He stepped back, running his hair through his hair in frustration. "I gave you everything you needed. I paid your mother's bills before the contract money even cleared." Lily froze. "What?" Adrian looked at her sharply. "You think the hospital suddenly became patient out of kindness?" Her heart pounded. You paid them?" "Yes." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want you to feel owned," harshly replied. "I wanted you to feel secure." The room spun slightly. All this time, she had thought he was cold, distant, uncaring, but he had been helping her quietly, without asking for credit. "I didn't want your gratitude," he continued. "I just wanted stability." The word sounded heavier than it should. Lily's chest tightened. "You said this was only business," she whispered. "It was," replied Adrian, "until it wasn't." Her heart skipped. "You matter more than I planned," he admitted, his voice lower now. "And that was my mistake." The vulnerability in his voice shook her more than any anger would have. "I never meant to hurt you," she said. "But you did." There was no cruelty in his tone, just honesty. A tear slipped down her cheek. "I was lonely," she admitted. "You built walls so high I couldn't reach you." "And you chose the first person who opened a door," Adrian replied. She didn't deny it, because it was true. They stood there in painful silence. Finally, Adrian reached for his wedding ring. He twisted it slowly off his finger. The soft metallic sound as he placed it on the desk echoed loudly in the quiet room. 1 year, he said. That was the agreement. Lily's heart cracked. "Are you ending it?" she asked, barely breathing. "I'm ending the pretending," he replied. You deserve clarity. So do I. He stepped closer again, his voice steady but heavy. If you want Ethan, go to him, he said. I won't chain you here. The offer surprised her. You'd let me walk away? She asked. Yes. Not because he didn't care, but because he did. Lily felt the weight of the choice pressing against her chest. Ethan made her feel seen, understood, alive. But Adrian? Adrian had protected her in silence. He had supported her without demanding love in return. He had never lied about who he was. She realized something in that moment. Ethan had given her comfort, but Adrian had given her strength. One made her feel safe. The other challenged her to grow. Why didn't you tell me how you felt? She asked softly. Adrian looked away. Because I don't know how, he admitted. I was raised to control everything. Feelings don't fit into control. The honesty hurt and healed at the same time. Lily stepped closer. You're not as cold as you pretend to be, she said gently. And you're not as careful as you pretend to be, he replied. Despite everything, a faint, sad smile touched her lips. She took a deep breath. I won't run, she said quietly. Adrian looked at her, surprised. I don't know what I feel fully yet, but I know I don't want to leave without trying. Trying what? He asked. Trying to build something real, without contracts, without pretending. Silence. Then Adrian asked the hardest question. And Ethan? Her chest tightened. I will end it, she said softly. It hurt to say it, but she knew it was the only way forward. Adrian studied her carefully, searching for doubt. Don't choose me out of guilt, he said. I'm not. I'm choosing clarity. The air between them shifted, not fixed, not healed, but honest. For the first time since signing that contract, Lily felt like she wasn't performing. She was deciding. Adrian picked up the wedding ring slowly. He didn't put it back on. Not yet. Then we start over, he said quietly. No contracts, no expectations. Lily nodded. Outside, the night was still. Inside, everything had changed. She had married a stranger for money. She had fallen for the wrong man. But now, standing in the quiet study with a husband who finally allowed himself to be human, Lily understood something important. Love wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was hidden in sacrifice. Sometimes it was buried under fear. And sometimes it arrived only after everything broke. Their future was uncertain. Trust would take time. Forgiveness would not be easy. But for the first time, the marriage felt less like a deal and more like a choice.